Welcome to the SDR DiscoCall vidcast and podcast, a show designed for brand new sales reps working in the world of tech sales. I'm your host, Neil Buyan, and I'm going to be taking you on a journey on the SDR DiscoCall vidcast and podcast. Did you know that you can watch this show live with the guests on YouTube? This show is available on YouTube at happyselling.io. Hello, listeners and watchers. Welcome to another chapter, another episode, and another story on the SDR DiscoCall show. If you're joining us for the first time, this show is to give you an insight into the world of tech sales or startup sales. And the area that we focus on is around sales development. So these are the sort of people that would pretty much reach out to cold prospects to get them interested in that meeting, and then obviously hopefully provide them a new service through software. And my name is Neil Buyan, your host. My job is to help guide these conversations, but find really cool and interesting people to come on board, share their stories, and give you insights into this lovely world of tech sales and startups and sales. If you're listening to this on your local podcast platform, please make sure that you give us a rating and share. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe down below. Now, with this guest, they're just a ball of creativeness. That's just the best way that I can put it. There's just so much to this person. But the really cool thing about this person is they prospected me for their podcast and for their show. And that obviously got me really excited. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce our next guest. Guest, who are you?
Neil, thank you so much for introduction. I love the way you described me. I also prefer to think of myself as a creative person, depending on the days. So my name is Mafalda. I was named after a cartoon called Mafalda, and I'm Portuguese, and I'm the business development director, commercial director, and marketing director at Wonderway. It's a startup, so I'm director of the revenue departments, basically, and. Very quickly what Wonderway does, and I promise it's the last time I talk about my company.
It's all right.
It's a sales training platform, so we give an LMS for people to onboard and train their salespeople, and we have an AI coach that listens to your calls and gives you personalized feedback after each call. Pitch, slap, over. Let's dive into more interesting things.
Wow. And as I mentioned, people, she's a ball of energy and creativeness. That's so cool. And bon dia to you, Mafalda.
Bon dia.
And could you tell us, whereabouts in the world are you based, Mafalda?
Absolutely. I am in Berlin, Germany, even though my company is fully remote, and I'm a huge remote work advocate. But yeah, I've been living in Germany for 9 years now.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us on this chapter with yourself. And you know, what I like to ask all guests, and there is probably a long list to this, could you tell us what are the things that you like to get up to? What's your passions and hobbies outside of sales, Mafalda?
How long do we have, Neil?
We've got enough time. Hit us. What are the main ones?
I doubt that. So basically, I'm on my free time. I'm a marketing manager for a jazz music band. So my boyfriend is a jazz musician, and I do the marketing of his band.
Nice.
I also write. I like writing. I'm writing a sales book in Portuguese with the goal of writing literature in Portuguese as well, but it's a way to have my foot in the publishing market in Portugal. I like to sing. I did music school when I was younger, and I did theater. So everything that's related to art, I do it. I also write lyrics for music for my boyfriend. So most of his songs, the lyrics are mine, both in English and in Portuguese. I do also other stuff, but let's stop there because we don't have much time.
That is so freaking cool. So obviously, you know, working within a startup, the passion for music, helping your partner with not only marketing the band, but also helping writing lyrics to the song and stuff. that is, wow. I really, that sings to my heart. I love it. Okay, cool. All right, love it. So as for a reminder for our returning guests, but also for our regular watchers and listeners, typically at this point, what we like to do is visit our guests' LinkedIn profile.
Let's
do it. And with all of these guests, you'll be finding Mafalda's LinkedIn profile within the show notes and the description. So if you want to connect with Mafalda, pick her brain on any of the topics that we've discussed today, or perhaps you want to learn more about that music, feel free to reach out to
Yeah,
her.
please subscribe the music band on Spotify and YouTube.
We'll put in the links. We'll definitely put in the links for them.
No shame here.
No shame. Let's plug. But with Mafalda's LinkedIn profile, she is somebody that, you know, regularly posts great content on LinkedIn, especially around, you know, sales training, coaching, etc., tech and cool things going on. And she is also somebody that's going to be at the AR Artist Circus in Berlin this year. And we're going to be able to meet face to face and
Finally.
You know, give a big hug. Finally,
Yes!
I can't wait.
Me neither.
But obviously, when you know, Mafalda first reached out to me on LinkedIn to prospect me, actually, we connected a few years ago. And I just remember it was just a connection and we were talking. And obviously, you personalized that note. But then we got into the talking of snow globes. And I was just, okay, this is different. And Mafalda, I learned from Mafalda that she used to love collecting different snow globes from her trips around the world. But that's another story. But coming back to your experience, you've got a hell of a lot of experience, Mafalda. You know, so way back in the day, starting as a research assistant, you've been a sales agent, you've worked at Sandeman's New Tours, you've been at Applause, you know, marketing PR for Plasticine, advisor, being an instructor for SDRs of Germany, and you know you've had a great success at Wonderway for the past 3 years. But Mafalda, in your own words, can you kind of walk us through how did you go from where you were back in the day when you were young to where you are today? What's the story?
So I was always passionate about arts and especially literature. Literature is my thing. If you didn't notice by my introduction on my hobbies, and so when I was 15 in Portugal, you have to decide in high school which area would you like to go. So if you go to science or economics or literature or whatever, and my mother was expecting me to choose literature and you know Latin and these kind of things that I'm actually passionate about. Yeah. And I studied and I decided to go for economics and then go to the best management school, business school in Portugal. And my mother was like, the hell, you hate mathematics? Actually, you're really bad at it. Like,
thanks for being honest, Mom.
Oh, my mother is definitely not the motivator. Eh? She's not like, oh, my daughter is the best. She's like, Mom, I want to be a singer. And she's like, no. So she's like, are you sure, honey? Because you're good at writing, not mathematics. And you hate it. And I'm like, Mom, I can write. What I cannot do is to sell, and I don't understand anything about business. So I don't need to learn how to write or literature. I do that on my own and at home. But I need to learn something I know nothing about, and it's super important if I want to be a non-writer one day. Yeah. So I took a business school. Was not fun. It was a lot of work. I hated almost every single course I took, but I did it. And then I come from a middle-class Portuguese family, which means no money, right? Because middle class in Portugal, it's pretty poor. So we never had like money to travel or anything. I always wanted to see the world. So business school was also a way to like do exchange programs. So I did my couple of credits in University of Seoul in South Korea. Then they had an exchange with US, and I did my master's in the US, so I was able to live in the US. So I wanted that experience and was kind of a door to the world. And then when I finished my master's, I got my working visa in the US. No job experience. And in the US, Americans, they start working when they are younger. So when they finish college, they have a lot of work experience, and I had none. So it was really hard for me to find a job. So the only ones who took me was 100% commission sales job because they had no costs with me. So no risk.
You either make the money, no risk. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You're Portuguese, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." That's similar to Spanish, isn't it? I don't speak Spanish. Yeah, you're gonna sell to the Latin American market. You know, like I don't speak that language. And I was like, "Yeah, no. Off you go.
You'll be fine.
Commission, selling in a language you don't speak." Obviously, I learned Spanish a month after, right? Because when you have to pay your rent, you
got to find a way, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna learn the language. Forget the language courses. You know, like this is way more effective. So, long story short, that's how I got into sales, and then everything just went from there. I would say, you know.
Wow. So that was, quite a journey with, being within your studies and having to figure out where is it that you want to go. Having the discussions with your mother and saying, this is something I'm passionate about. And she's like, I don't know, Mafalda, right? But obviously, as you're traveling around the world, you're probably meeting different people, different cultures, etc.
Yeah.
And then coming across a business which says, okay, so, Portuguese is similar to Spanish, and you're just like, well, I don't speak Spanish. But then you're having to task yourself to learn a new language to help you out in a commission-only sales role, right? That's tough beans, but congrats for doing it. And I think that's a lot of perseverance. But I kind of want to come back, Mafalda, too, because this is a topic predominantly that we speak to with a lot of SDRs that have just graduated, right? When you're at a point in your career where you have to kind of decide what your future career is. Now, my thought is, at that perhaps age, you may not have a clear idea as to what is it that you want to do for the rest of your life. And it's a very difficult thing to perhaps choose, because for somebody that did study up to a point but then got kicked out of college and just didn't go to university because I had a problem with authority, as all our listeners and watchers know, I kind of had this idea of I wanted to work within IT. What within IT, I didn't know. But the reason why was I geeked out on technology, computers, old computers, PCs, and stuff like that. And I just thought, well, that's something that's either going to grow in the decades to come. So that's probably a safe place to be. But I just wanted to come back to you of what was that young Mafalda thinking about, like writing and a direction? Because I think what's important for people is you may not need to know the job, but at least the direction you kind of want to go in. But how did you come to that conclusion?
So I'm kind of a person, even though I'm a huge planner in terms of like calendar and my life, even though I plan a lot like the days and the tasks in order to be efficient, in terms of like bigger plans, I go with the flow. And the reason why I go with the flow, it's because I have way too many interests. And even though it sounds good at first, for me, it's not great because I get bored very easily and I want to try new things. So when I always say the 30% rule that I invented, which is if I know 30% of a subject, I'm happy to jump to another one. Because I don't want to be an expert in anything, because being an expert takes a long time and I don't have that patience, because I'm always like, oh my God, this is so interesting and I want to learn that. So my career has been a bit like, oh, what do I feel like doing in the moment? I tried this. Oh, I love to explore. So, and that's why if you look at my profile, I was operations manager. I was event manager. I was SDR, sales. And now I'm going towards marketing and content marketing. I never thought, which it's kind of an obvious thing. If I like to write, obviously content marketing is a thing. It never crossed my mind. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
I only reaching that conclusion while I'm doing it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's my life. I only reach these conclusions when I'm already at the job.
Because I gather it's because you're, sometimes you don't so much think about it. It's just this is something you enjoy. It's something new. And then you start doing it more and more and more. And you're,
and then things come naturally. Oh, shit, now I'm the business development director. How did I get here?
And you're right. And, there are so many things that I can relate to there. So yesterday I wrote a post about being the expert, right? And it's a term that I really try not to take because I don't like it. Because I think as an SDR, coming into a brand new company, you're having to learn all of these acronyms, and the acronyms are so long for these words, and I'm like, why can't we shorten them? And then you're having to learn things such as total addressable market, scalable, bootstrapping, ecosystem, all these new terms and lingo, right? And then obviously you've got the type of personas, so you could be speaking to C-level people, directors, VPs, managers, individual contributors, and that's a whole bunch of different conversations you've got there. And then, you come to the actual platform and technology. So I think the point I'm getting to here is a lot of SDRs, and I did this myself, come into this role in sales thinking we have to be an expert before we start speaking to that prospect. And, I remember my first discovery calls, I was shitting it. I was so scared that, okay, I see this job title of a C-level person. Oh my God, they actually accepted the invite. And then the second thing is, what the hell are we going to talk about? What happens if they ask me a question I don't know the answer to? And, I would be begging my account executives to join the first call because I was so scared. over time, they did get to that point where they said, Neil, you don't really need us for this first. We're not supposed to be here for a first call. That's why you're here, right? You qualify them and then just pass them over. It's as simple as that. But I came to a really cool realization, maybe 6 to 12 months into my first tech job, which was I'm not the expert. The people that are the experts are the people that I'm talking to that have the job title, that have the salary, that do the day-to-day things. We're just another business that helps them with part of that job. So We're supposed to be, experts within our product to an extent. But I kind of came to this thing of be the student on the discovery call. So Mafalda, if you were like a CEO, I would just say, look, this is what our business does, but I'd love to learn, like, what does your day-to-day look like? How do you make decisions? How do you lead a company?
Yeah.
How do you, like, what are your plans for, like, next year and how are you going to get them? And the more I did that, at points, if I ever felt out of depth, like, again, sometimes it can be intimidating speaking to a C-level person when you're first in your job.
Even nowadays, if I'm speaking to a CEO of a huge company that have 30 years experience, it's scary. I'm not going to lie.
100%. But I think the shift in mindset of let me be the student, it allowed me that if a C-level, any person, right, said something I didn't understand, I could then have the gravitas to say, hey, Mafalda, I'm relatively new to the industry. What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised. 9 times what people, I don't know what it is. I read somewhere that people love to teach because it enhances and boosts their ego.
Yeah.
People love, that's why we're in sales training, right? Because it boosts our ego.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, with these young people that may be coming into this, or not even just young, just people generally coming into sales and speaking to this sort of stuff, how did you handle speaking to people that intimidated you, and how did you get more comfortable and confident with it, Mafalda?
So basically, when I started to be an SDR, I was lucky because it was still the time when there were a lot of conferences. So I would prospect a lot in conferences, and I think that really helped me to get more comfortable, because sometimes I was speaking to someone at an event at the bar and I didn't realize that person was C-level somewhere, right? So that really helped me. And I did like kind of the same as you in the sense that, if I don't know, I ask.
Yeah.
And sometimes, so I don't look stupid or I look less stupid, sometimes I ask with a sense of humor. So sometimes, for example, I can give you a very specific example. So I once prospected head of engineering, software engineers, and quality assurance. I don't understand anything what they say.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's it doesn't have to be a C-level, a junior quality assurance, I have no idea what they say.
Yeah.
So when they start speaking a language that I don't speak, I just say, I don't understand anything. I'm a salesperson, like just as a joke, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not diminishing the sales job, but it's a way for them to laugh and not call me stupid, right?
Yeah.
So I always try to handle that with a smile on my face and a little joke. It doesn't happen all the time because people have different sense of humor, but it relaxed me. So even if the person was like, who is this person? I was like, funny. And then that's it. Another story for my book.
I think that's a really cool technique in the sense of you're kind of addressing the elephant in the room, but you're doing it in such a way where you're saying, it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah,
but I'm just the salesperson. And, I think humor is another great trait to bring in sales because, historically, sometimes when we look at sales, we can see it as business professionals, suits and ties, very serious. And I think, going into that SDR gig, we may think that we need to be that as well because we have these preconceptions. Because as I put on my LinkedIn post yesterday, I was wearing kind of basically a suit and a blazer when I went into my first startup job. And kind of when I walked through the office, everybody's just casual hoodies, and I was like, I feel a little bit overdressed for this. And the A's are like, Neil, you're looking really sharp. Have you got a date later today? And I'm like, no.
This was for this.
Yeah, exactly. But, you learn as you go along, right?
And it's also good to have the guard down. So just a very quick story. I remember I was in this conference where the way it was set up was really bad in the sense that, like, the booth where the companies were, they were all together, and every time like a prospect would come in, they'll be bombarded. It was really like it was really bad for the prospects. So every single prospect I would like to speak with at the time, they were really not wanting to speak with me because they were bothered for so many hours. So what I did was, when I would approach, it's like, hey, how are you? They would go to me like, yeah, what do you want to sell me? Right? Because because I understand, it was, that conference was very intense. And I would smell like nothing, my company got me here and drinking for free.
I love that.
Right? And then obviously I had intention to have a conversation with him, but I knew when he has that mindset and he wants me to do a pitch for him to reject me, even if I offered the thing he needs, he was not in the right mindset to get my pitch. So I need to make him smile or to make him hate me, but feel something. Then it's not like. And also, I didn't fall into the trap of, oh, I'm going to pitch you so you can reject me. I know what you're doing. I'm not going to give that to you,
I love that. And you're right, because I think a lot of prospects, or let's just call them people for the sake of it, because it's they're conditioned based on the experiences of other salespeople that they may have spoken to, right? And I think, because I had my preconceptions of salespeople being very cutthroat, narcissistic, money hungry. And I just said, I just want to be the difference. I just don't want to be the typical salesperson. So I think with your style, you're bringing that difference. That's your personality shining through. And I think, within sales, one of the things that's helped me is being authentically me, right? Just bringing because I think, from a hiring manager perspective, that's probably what stood out to them in the interview. And as a manager, you're probably trying to figure out, what would this person look like in front of our prospects if we hired them, right? But there is, truth be told, on LinkedIn, there is a little bit of contention where I've seen somebody posted the other day, like, the worst advice you could ever have is being authentically you. And their reasons behind it was, your prospects, your team, they're not your friends, they're not your family. You are here for a commercial business. This is numbers. This is ultimately about closing. And I sat there and I just thought, well, that's authentically you, saying how you are on that post. But what advice would you give to somebody that's trying to bring that personality, trying to bring that creativeness to the role? What advice would you give to Mafalda?
So I agree and disagree with such a post. So the part I agree is LinkedIn and company is a job. Yeah. And there is this golden rule: no religion, sex, and politics should be spoken.
Ooh, you're the first person that does what I do, but we'll come back to that in a minute.
So it's like, I can be my authentic self in a working environment. It's still me. It's still my opinions. But there are certain things you should refrain to say or to do because it's just not the place. Or, for example, I can give you another story. So I also do the same in my personal life. I barely speak about my job and what I do in my personal life because I have other things to think of. And I don't want to bother my friends and family. But the thing is, I do it so much. Then I spoke in a radio show in Portugal a couple of months ago. And it was the first time that my friends back home and my family listened. And I finally got to know what I actually do. And then my best friend calls me. It's like, Mafalda, I thought I was your best friend. I'm like, I still am. Why are you having these conversations? Like, how many followers do you have again on LinkedIn? Are you famous and I didn't know? Like, what? Do you have the podcasts? And I'm like, yes. Why I don't know this? It's like, because it's not important. Like for our friendship, that's work. So it's the same thing. There are certain personal things. I'm sorry, but the workplace is not a place for them. It's not they are wrong. It's just not the right place. So you can be your authentic self within the professional sandbox. Because when people think you have to be professional, means you cannot be creative and you have to be shy and not speak your opinion. No, that's not it. You can do all of it within the professional sandbox, and you shouldn't. As I said, there are certain topics that, one, they're not relevant, and second, will get you into trouble. So leave it for your personal life,
100%. So it's interesting that you said, not talking about religion, politics and stuff like that. So this is something I haven't spoken about on this show. But outside of the world of sales and music and all the other things I do, I'm part of an organization called Freemasons, and I practice Freemasonry, right? For those not in the know, old gentlemen's club. We meet once a month and it's all about philanthropy and like doing charity work. But the thing that attracted me to Freemasonry, Mafalda, was we're people that meet once a month to talk and see what we can do for our community. But the two rules of what we're not allowed to talk about is politics and religion.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind that is those are the two topics that divide a lot of people and cause a lot of friction. It's not to say that you can't have religious belief or political beliefs.
You can and you should.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to.
Yeah.
But there are places to talk about them.
Yeah, exactly. Because by removing those two sort of barriers, it just allows us to be a bit more open in the other things that we want to do.
Yes.
And it just doesn't cause that friction. So when it comes to LinkedIn or, the business profiles or social media pages that I have, again, those are the two top. I take that learning and I don't put it onto there. And again, there are a lot of things that are happening in the world, and I've seen it all on there. But I have an opinion on it.
Oh, I do have very strong opinions.
Yeah, I have opinions. But then again, it's those strong opinions because we could have opposing opinions on that topic and subject. So, sometimes people say, well, Neil, why aren't you supporting this, or why you do that? I said, look, dude, I do that in my own life and I have thoughts on this. Yeah. But I don't put it on there. And it's not to hide away from everything, but I've learned...
No, it's just not the place.
But I've seen people go into a shitstorm of an argument on a post, and I'm like, I don't argue with idiots on the internet. Like, I just don't... And again, I'm not calling people idiots for having the beliefs, but I just don't do it there, right?
Exactly. It's the same with me. I don't mind to discuss these serious topics on a one-to-one, face-to-face. Yeah. But not in a post where you cannot hear my tone, you don't know me, you don't know my background. And people, especially now with this social media and these like clickbait news, people are so divided. They see one it's like SEO. They see one keyword and they put you in a basket. And I was like, no, you just saw. And people, because of the whole technology, people are reading less and they have less capacity to check the text and see what's in there. So if I put like something online, they will quickly jump on me and misinterpret everything I said. I don't want to be in that position, and I'm too busy to be trying to get my point through people that I don't even know.
Exactly.
So it's not about like hiding away. It's just one, I'm too busy, and two, I don't mind to share my beliefs in a one-on-one when you can see my face, hear my tone, and I can actually like explain certain logics and reasonings behind. If I don't have that space, you're not going to hear my opinion about anything.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right. And also like within career and working professional businesses and stuff, the thing that I love about working in a lot of startups that I've done is the diversity of the type of people you meet from different places, different countries, different cultures and stuff like that. And I'm always mindful of not wanting to be racist to an extent, or be unsensitive to a topic, something that they may deem very important to them. So I'm very mindful of those things. So I find it always important to understand people's cultures, where they're from, the things that they get up to. Those are the things that interest me, because the people behind it, that's the cool stuff. And in sales, you meet so many cool people, right?
Absolutely.
But coming back to that story of, you did your show in Portugal and then your friends and your family like, dude, like Mafalda, who is this other person? Who is this other persona, right? Mine's kind of similar, but I've learned something. So in the early days of launching my business with Happy Selling, I'm putting it all over my Facebook, my personal Instagram, saying, hey guys, I'm launching this thing. I'm going as a solopreneur. And, initially people are like, oh, congratulations. They're like, yeah, go for it. And then as the months or years go by, you post stuff and your achievements, and then there's just like one like, or nobody shares the video.
No one likes
stuff like
braggers, Neil.
Yeah. But, back in the day, it used to cut me up, because I'm like, dude, like, support your friends, support the businesses. Like, whatever you're doing in life, I'll do it. But there's a thing that I learned I read an article on it. Basically, your friends and family, or people in general, have a different version of you in their head. So they may know me as Neil, the guy they went to high school with. They may know Neil as the guy that used to work in Pizza Hut. Or they may know Neil of that guy who does the lyrics on a stage in front of DJs and other MCs.
I can't wait for that, by the way, in Berlin.
Yeah, I can't wait as well.
Good.
But they have these versions of you. So when they see another side of you, they're just like, oh, that doesn't fit the narrative of how I saw Neil. So basically the point that I'm trying to get to, I've now learned they don't support me, it's not because they don't love what I'm doing. It's just they can't relate that version of me to the version that they know.
Exactly.
So what I've learned is every now and then I will post something on my personal because I'm proud of it and I want to remember it. But I keep things separate. So because the other side of it is people that don't know you online through social media take you for face value. So they take that version on that video, that podcast, that article, that blog, that role working in tech sales or stuff like that. And I think it was James Buckley who kind of said, like, it's the strangers that will support you in your business and your goals versus your friends and family.
It's
and
true.
Another thing that I read where they said clients become friends quicker than friends becoming clients.
Oh my God, that's all right. That's for me the quote of this show, eh? Let's highlight that. It's so true.
Yeah.
And it's not because they don't support us. It's like, again, there are certain places for certain things, period. You know?
100%.
I totally agree with you. And going back to that, the reason why my friend was so shocked with my LinkedIn presence is I don't have social media privately. I don't have Instagram. I don't have TikTok. I have an old Facebook account I barely use. So because I never liked social media, I still don't. And I'm this kind of like old woman saying this is a cancer in our society. Let's not go into that. So basically, she knows my opinion about social media, and then she finds out that I have a LinkedIn profile where I post every day. She's like, "You're a hypocrite."
And how did you respond to that?
I said, "Look, I still have the same opinion, but for me, LinkedIn is work." And also, I think LinkedIn is a better social media than the others because it's still made for work and for business. Most people, they don't show their true selves there in the sense of that part. Like they're still authentic, but within the professional environment. So we don't see the worst of people because they know they cannot show it. So I can deal with the social media with some filters, and that's productive. I see a lot of benefits of using LinkedIn, right? So I think LinkedIn is something that benefits, obviously, LinkedIn, the company, but also you and your success in your work. So it's a win-win situation. For Instagram, unless you're a musician, unless you use Instagram for business, if it's just personal, I'm sorry, and this is a win-lose situation because Instagram and Meta, they win and they take your data. You feel depressed because you see the fake lives of other people. You see other people looking better with you because they use a lot of filters, and then you are depressed and you're doing pills. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
All right, I escalated quickly on purpose.
Extreme,
But you know what I mean? I think that if you use social media just for personal reasons, I think the company wins more than you. I'm not saying now everyone close your social media accounts. Do whatever you want. It's your life. You know better. If it brings you joy, do it. But for me personally, it doesn't bring me anything.
And you're right. I think it's relative to the person and, what they put on. Because I think, so where you're saying, like, you're right. So using social media for business benefit and, putting out your personal brand, gaining new clients, helping educate people into topics that you're really passionate about, 100%. That's how I see LinkedIn. And I think, but I am where you're coming down with the personal social media side, where, that's not your thing. And I would say I'm the extreme opposite, right? Because I can remember days of being on MSN Messenger, then going on to some...
the nostalgia.
The nostalgia there, right? But then, that then transformed it, and I'm showing my age now, I'm 40 this year.
No.
Yes.
Neil, what are you taking? Please share.
I will. All right. Ask me that question again at the end of this, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. I'll tell you the fountain of youth. But yeah, MSN Messenger. It then went on to something called Face Party, and then I had something called. We used MySpace, right?
MySpace. A lot of musicians got famous there.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
MySpace closed down, and they lost all their contacts.
Yeah, Tom lost all of his friends and his connections, and that was done. But then, 2007, I had a girlfriend at the time who was at university. And when I was with her, she said, "Oh, there's this thing," and this is in 2007, remember? 2005, 2007. She said, "Oh, I'm on something called Facebook." And I was like, "What's Facebook?" And she said, oh, it's like a social intranet where people from universities connect with each other. They can talk and post pictures. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's kind of like Face Party in MySpace. So I joined that. I get onto that and I'm like, cool, this is freaking cool. We post our pictures. And do you know what? If I could go back to my original post on Facebook, it makes me cringe every now and then.
It's fine.
Memories come.
Me too. It's okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, what the hell were you thinking? But
it's part of the journey.
It is. But then, the social media journey was, I went onto Facebook and then a couple of years later, everybody's on there and I'm forever getting these invites, pokes. And I was like, oh, I don't like this shit.
Did you ever get the pokes thing? I never got it.
We'd do it for fun, but we'd poke people because it was kind of saying, I want to talk to you, but I'm too scared to talk to you, I think is what it was, or just for fun. But then when I noticed a lot of my friends or families and everybody else getting on Facebook, I got bored. So I then, in 2012, I went onto Twitter and opened my Twitter account. I was like, cool, there's no pictures here. It's just text and it's reading, right? So it's hearing thoughts and opinions. But then everybody went onto Twitter and I was like, forget this. And then this thing called Instagram came around. And then I was like, I'm more a visual person, so I just love the pictures. So I then got onto that. But then when I started doing my music or doing other creative things out of my 9-to-5 job, because 9-to-5 job, LinkedIn, I wasn't too focused on it back then, right? It was just, I had a profile, I worked. But I know we're going really deep here on social media, but I then realized that I would start creating separate profiles. So I would create a separate profile for my Happy Selling account, separate profiles on Twitter, separate profiles on Facebook. Yeah. And then it felt like my identity started splitting.
Yeah.
But my work colleagues or people that, that I worked with in sales, a lot of the time they said, Neil, you do so much. It's so confusing. And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, if I go into the Happy Selling social profiles, you're doing the sales training thing, then you're talking to a podcast thing, and then you're doing a workshop thing, and then you do I said, but that's what I do. And the way that I used to look at it was, here's a wall of my memories of all the things that I do, because I'm more than just a salesperson closing deals or just prospecting. Yeah. There's a world to it. But thankfully, when I hired my first marketer, she helped me put some structure and aesthetics to it.
Yes,
so I started getting it more. And then, when it came to LinkedIn, I was just like, I can see all these posts and most of them would either intrigue me or bore the hell out of me. But I think, and it's a point that I've raised on this show before, during the lockdown and the pandemic, a lot of people were remote and at home. So all they could do was go to the water cooler of work, which was LinkedIn, to see these posts. But when people were stuck at home, they were sharing what their bedroom looked like, the fact they were wearing the pajamas halfway down when doing a discovery call with prospects. Sales training, there was like networking shops. So much was going on. Right?
Yeah,
it was. But I even started seeing people like pulling up guitars and doing a song about sales on their LinkedIn profile. And
I posted a video of me playing the transverse flute, which is my instrument.
Please send us the link because we need to put that in the show notes for anybody that's watching, right? But the point that I'm getting here is, I saw a post the other day that kind of pissed me off, where this person put on LinkedIn, LinkedIn became Instagram last year. And it's because there's this contention on LinkedIn where people are saying, oh, it's too much like Facebook, this isn't the place for et cetera, et cetera. But I'm like, but things evolve. And I kind of didn't comment on the guy's post because I don't like having fights with people on the internet.
Me neither. Face-to-face once again.
Yeah. But it did make me think of a post to write a couple of days later, which was, they laughed when they said that I Love Film, now Netflix, would replace Blockbuster. They laughed when they said that Lyft
I saw your post. Yes. I
so,
remember that post.
Like Uber replacing cabs. And then I kind of put in facetiously, they laughed when they said that LinkedIn became Instagram. That isn't indirect. I'm not going to lie. Hands up for that. But it's just this thing of adapting. And I think adapting is something I learned as a sales rep. That the situations change, nothing stays the same, and you kind of got evolved with it. And I've learned that if you don't evolve, that's when you die. And I'd love to
Darwin wrote a book about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, evolution and everything. It's like we evolve, and I think that's kind of the thing that I love about tech and sales is it's constantly the industry, like even SDRs, like compared to what I did 10 years ago, it's very different now. But
completely.
It kind of helps me bring it onto the segue because this is something we spoke about before we came on recording this show today about the creative side of it.
Yeah.
So, Mafalda, obviously, as you've mentioned before, like you hadn't gone down the AE route, but you've done a lot of other things. And, you're being a commercial director today, which is fucking awesome. But I wanted to know, what's your opinion on being creative, using your creative skills, putting it into sales, like maybe even looking at marketing and copy and all of these sort of things? So let me rephrase the question. When it comes to working in sales, how can a creative help you?
I think creativity helps every single profession, even the ones that it's not like as obvious, because creativity is a part of a problem solving, or the other way around. Problem solving is a sub-umbrella of creativity. So you need creativity to solve problems. That's problem solving. So it's really hard to go around the world and any job without being creative. Also, if you think about the doctor, right? So he or she needs to, when it's hard to diagnose something, right? The symptoms, when they don't make sense, they need to go and try to figure out. This is some sort of creativity. Because I have a webinar about creativity, and I mentioned that, which is people mix creativity with art. So people think if you're not a musician or an actress or a painter, you're not creative. And you can be extremely creative being a software engineer and not creative at all if you're being a musician. Why? Because if you're just an executor, there are musicians, like especially classical ones, they just repeat, like a violin or a flute, which is what I used to play. They just repeat what someone else wrote. There is nothing creative in this process. And I can tell you, learning an instrument is automation 2.1. So you can be an amazing executioner because you practice. It doesn't make you creative, though. And you can be a software engineering, solving problems every day and being extremely creative. So first, it's very important to make this distinction between art and creativity. And I'm really tired to hear people who work in business, oh, no, I'm not creative. I never did anything artsy. I was like, there's nothing to do with that. So I'm naturally creative, but I also practice a lot. And that's another misconception, that creativity is a skill. So you can practice. It's not a born natural talent. Obviously, there are people that are born like with it and then they trained. But that's the same with singing. Anyone can sing, really anyone. There are people who need way more classes than others. Yeah. That's another story. But everyone has the part in the brain that's for singing. So anyone can sing if you put the time into it. It's the same with creativity. So I really recommend, if people think it's a weakness or something that's not developed, it's not like, oh, well, such a shame. Let me be born again next life. No, you can practice. And you should do it. And especially in sales and marketing in both. Without creativity, with so much noise and so many new products and so many SDRs and your prospects being arrested every day, you need to stand out. And the only way it's with the problem solve. If you don't like the word creativity, you have to develop your problem solving skill. Yeah. And your problem is your prospects are not replying to you. How am I going to solve this problem? Yeah. I love, that's piqued something in my brain where you are talking about, the musicians and the automation. It's the repetitive, learning the notes, the strings, and, learning the music sheet. And I think the way that I can relate to it is for somebody who's an MC, I have to either write lyrics, memorize them, and then obviously go for, you've got my 16 bars here, then you've got a hook, then you've got another 16 bars, and then perhaps you've got a bridge. And then you're going to kind of wrap it up. Before that, I couldn't do none of that stuff. It was just maybe a quick couple of freestyling lyrics. And then you went to learn how to write. Right, yeah. I did 2 workshops on lyrics writing. It doesn't come naturally, people. You need a framework. Please go learn if you want to. Yeah. For years. So there's 2 parts to this. So the writing piece, what I would do is, there was lots of songs that I love, rap songs that I used to love, and I would remember the lyrics and I could say them as I'm listening to it on the radio or on my phone. Forgot about Dre. Yeah. But what I would then do is then go into Google and ask for the lyrics, because I wanted to see the structure of how did they come up with the punchline? How did they figure the hook?
And then I learned with producers, dude, it's not about the lyrics first. You need to find the hook first, the catchy hook, the repetitive hook. And then I started studying.
And build a story around it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was a storyteller, and I've written, like, I've done spoken poetry where there are no hooks or anything like that, because I just love the flowing of the story and telling it. But like behind closed doors in this room last night, there's this one instrumental, a rap instrumental by Mike Jones called Still Tipping. It's a very grimy sort of hip hop old school track. But I just love sitting there just freestyling. And I will freestyle to the same song for 2 or 3 hours, and new words and bars and lyrics will come out. And then sometimes when I've got to the end of spitting that lyrical verse, something I haven't planned just comes out. I'm like, oh, I like the way that my tongue rolled on that and I said it. And then I write it down. But then it may take me even a year to structure that before I go into the studio to do it. So that creativity bit, problem solving.
Talent is hard work.
Yeah.
Talent is hard work, people.
Yeah. But I think, bringing it back into that sales, but I loved how you said, so here's the second part, the problem solving. Sometimes we can get so used to the automation or the steps within our sequence, we just want it to go through. That's boring as fuck, dude.
Jesus,
but,
yes.
But like having the creative side. So, I'm coaching SDRs every week, and I love it, Mafalda, when they come to said, hey, I'm going to do this video because I've got no response. Or, they're not responding to the email. They're not responding to the video. Maybe I should call it out by writing them a letter or something. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't think of that. And it's that thinking outside the box. And I think, when I was in SDR, I remember at Zora, the AEs, they'd been there for about a year. And I was booking these enterprise meetings. And they would turn around and say, no, I've been trying to get into that account for fucking months. How did you do it? And I said, well, I just sent this message. And, I went on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a place where they want to chat. And I'm keeping very short and, telling a quick story or maybe over the phone. And they just said, yeah, all right, we're interested. And because they were just following the normal process that they had. And you had this fresh guy that had no sales experience, that didn't have the knowledge curse of everything that they've had for years. And you just try something different. I love that. But
I liked what you mentioned about the framework, and then like the fresh mind. So I see frameworks and processes like learning, for example, how to write or even how to learn an instrument, which is, it's really important that you learn what actually, and hopefully the framework is something based on what worked in the past, hopefully. It's not always the case, but let's assume it is. So I think, especially if you're new in sales, it's important that you learn a solid base. Once you know the solid base, so now that you know how to write well without mistakes, how to use punctuation, understand grammar. So now that you can write without mistakes, so now that you can prospect in a way that makes sense, then you can be creative, right? Now it's like, how can I iterate on that? So people also like mix, oh no, I'm gonna totally like forget about the framework. I was like, is the framework is there for a reason? Maybe it's the wrong reason, but before you just ditch it, just find out why. And if you think like someone had that bad idea, sure, ditch it. But if there is a certain logic to the framework, just don't forget about it, but improve it and make it your own. Okay, now I know how to write properly. I can write poetry. I can write rap lyrics. I can write a chronicle. I can write a technical book. Right? Like, you decide how you're going to write, but either or, anything you write has to be without mistakes. So you have to learn it first. And this is same in prospecting. Learn the personas, learn the product, learn the process, like be really good at it. And then when you are creative within the right knowledge, then is when you get success,
I love that. And also another light bulb moment went off as you was discussing the frameworks, right? So in my sales training, like I've got a lot of frameworks, and the way that I caveat it to my students, Mafalda, and tell me if this sounds familiar, is I'm like, look, I'm not telling you how to write an email. I'm not telling you how to do a cold call, because you're the one that does this daily with your prospects. But I want to give you a framework for structure of how to compose that email, or how to go in the beginning of your call, the middle way, and come out the end of it. But what I say to my students is, whatever worked for me 10 years ago or works for me today may not work for you. So what I want you to do is steal the best bits and then create your own style. And the upfront contract is, if we're going to do this, then share me your results, tell me what's working, so then I can share it with other people. But it kind of makes me think of that, Neil used to want to write songs and music, and I couldn't think of hooks or structure. So I went on Google to see how people wrote songs and their lyrics and stuff like that. But what I also knew was I couldn't copy their structure and the way they wrote lyrics, because then it wouldn't be me or my style. And I'd find it's kind of like a square peg on a hole. It doesn't fit. So I think something I see a lot in, training or coaching sessions, I have reps that come to say, hey, I saw this cool sequence blueprint on LinkedIn, or, I've got this great structure from Lavender, and they bring it. But the problem they're saying is it's just not working. I'm not getting your results. Like, can you give me the magic bullet? And I'm like, dude, what you're doing is you're taking, and here's a weird way of looking at it. You're taking other people's rap lyrics and you're trying to put out your own song, and it's just not working because you're not Drake, you're not Snoop Dogg, you're not Dre. So learn how they've created it, but then come up with your own this is bad. Come up with your own composition. But
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. What am I talking shit? Am I mad? Or what's your thoughts, Mafalda?
I think you said it right, because I think it's important that you get frameworks from people. The structure, as you said, the structure of any song. Piece, like the first lyrics that gets to the hook or the chorus, depending on how we call it. Then more lyrics for context. Sometimes a bridge. That's the same in storytelling. There are only 4 types of stories. Starts with a drama, goes down, ends up. It's like this or like that. So every single story, if you just cut it down, it's 4 lines of storytelling. Everything else, and that's what matters, it's on you. So you should definitely pick on a framework. For example, if the framework is send one email, probably not going to work. It can be the best email in the world, the best research account, probably it won't work because the framework, it's weak. But if the framework is 5 emails, 3 cold calls, 1 LinkedIn message, 1 LinkedIn post, this framework can work amazingly or terribly, depending on the content and the research you've put into the same framework. Because the framework is just a guide. The guide. The way you fill this out is like, imagine the kids' drawing books. You have something to paint. I'm a horrible painter. Trust me, can give me the best, beautiful black and white thing to paint. It's going to look horrendous. If someone else paints the same color book, it's going to look great. And it's exactly the same drawing. Because if you haven't done your research, if your message doesn't convey, if you're not addressing challenging, it doesn't matter if you're sending the 5 emails that Lavender or someone else told you to do. If those 5 emails don't speak to your prospect, you're not going to book a call, period.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I think you can get great inspiration from, these platforms, these people, and posting it.
And you should. Take it, make it your own.
Your own, that's the key thing here. But equally, test it and know that you're not going to get immediate results, because I know my early songs, when I listen to them, I'm like, dude, I cringe. I'm like, oh, Neil, why did you say that?
I was listening to one of the most famous singers in Portugal in a podcast, because it's a podcast about lyrics writing, and they invite the most famous Portuguese singers who have really great lyrics. So once again, I listen to the experts, right?
Yeah.
And I was listening to him, and he's one of the most famous and well succeed. His lyrics are great, and he also cringes. He's like, when I hear some of my early works, I'm like, what is this? Why did people follow me at the time? Why did I become famous? I didn't deserve it.
But you have to start somewhere, and it's cool to look back on your catalog of your songs or the things that you've seen there, because sometimes I'll go onto a secret YouTube channel that I don't post publicly, but my old stuff and stuff like that. And I look back and I look at this young Neil with such passion. He's a little rough around the edges, and he's talking to the camera about these bars and these lyrics that he's going to spit. And I'm just like, dude, what?
Dude, grow up.
But I'm happy that, it's seeing the progression over years and years and years, because I think, in the early days, it was just freestyle songs. There's the beat, hit the freestyle, and that was it. And then years later, it's Neil attempting a song. Now he's got structure and he's got a hook. Then a couple of years later, Neil singing the hook. And when I used to share that song, so there's a rap song that I did which samples Hotel California, the ding, 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 that bit, right? And when I used to play it to my friends, they could hear me rapping, but then they say, so who's the guy singing the hook? And I'm like, it's me. And they're like, you sing? And I was just, no, I don't really sing, but I tried. I was attempting. And now I don't sing a hook, but when I'm spitting the lyrics, I've got melody and the flow to it. So it's not just monotone, but it's learned through finding a structure, putting your own self, testing and knowing you're not going to have the success straight away. But as long as you're consistent with it, that's how it builds. But coming back to, creativity, trying different things, and obviously, educating people as well through this profession. A really cool thing that you have as well is your show, your podcast show as well. And at this point, for our watchers, I'm going to share our screen again. So, Mafalda, you have what we call the Sales Training Dreadly Sins, which I freaking love. And for our listeners and watchers, I'm going to be putting links to this so that you can check it out because yours truly will be on there very soon.
It is in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Woohoo! Okay, that's really good. Okay, so that's noted. But with this, I think when you approached me, and just to kind of give a bit of background as well, so I wanted to show, like with me and Mafalda, how it all came about is what I loved that she did was she said, hey, Neil, how's it going? Want to do a podcast swap? And I was like, I've never been asked that before. I said, that's so creative. But what I loved was, you put in the PDF of like how this stuff works. And if we just quickly go on, this was so freaking cool, Mafalda. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing the right tabs. Share this tab here. So this was the PDF that you sent over to me. And it was just like what the podcast and like the creative, the design. I was like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. How did she do this? I want to do something like this. She gives me the overview of, what the podcast is about, what we discussed, the length and everything. And I was like, I feel so intimidated. I was like, why have I not done this before? I said, but this is so cool. So she got me like really interested. And I kind of went back to her and I said, yep, let's do it. Hell yeah. And then I share my guide and I'm just like, I wonder what she's going to say about my guide. But anyway, so there's an example of Mafalda keeping it concise, knowing the action, the call to action, clear CTA and, booking me in and hey ho, she booked me. But coming back to the actual show itself, could you kind of tell us how did it come about? Who is it for? And why should people listen to that show or watch that show, Mafalda?
So basically, throughout my whole sales life, I've seen two main things that for me are key why most people don't make it in sales. One of them is they don't know their buyer personas. The other one, they're not well trained. So many companies, they don't train their sales reps and they expect them to perform. It's like, imagine a doctor who didn't go to medical school.
Scary.
Extremely scary.
Yeah.
But in sales, apparently this makes sense. So, so basically, I created two podcasts. One where I interview buyer personas, and the other one, which is this one, where I interview sales experts, can be sales enablers, sales trainers like yourself, the head of sales, sometimes even AEs, and where I ask them 3 sales training mistakes that either have done, have experienced, or have seen. So it's a 15 minutes, very short podcast because my goal here is to people to tune in for 10 minutes, learn the three things, please apply them and make the training better. So that's what this podcast is about. And anyone who is a salesperson can and should listen to it, because if you are not giving the training, if you're an SDR yourself, you can make those suggestions to your leadership and maybe get promoted. If they don't listen to you, they don't listen to you, you can apply them yourself. You should be the owner of your own career. And if you are a new sales manager and you are trying to build the onboarding and training, but you don't have previous experience, you can also apply. Or maybe your training is not working, and maybe this can give you some tips to change it and make it a bit more efficient. So I think either in giving or receiving the training, I believe and I hope there are good nuggets for you to get a bit better.
100%. And I think, so definitely, again, for listeners and watchers, I'll be putting the links in for you guys to review this, and please make sure you check it out and subscribe and give her a rating as well on her show. And I think, like from myself. So obviously with our show, this is like long form content. I loved the fact that it was only 15 minutes. So it's quick,
Sometimes
short,
even less.
yeah. But the value that I see there is, hey dude or miss, like you're on your commute to work. Or perhaps you've got an extra 15 minutes in your day where I don't know what the hell to do. You could listen and watch this.
15 minutes is like, when you have 15 minutes within like meetings, it's like I'm wasting my time because nothing I can start or do, right? So it's like that time frame where it usually is useless, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And filling it with knowledge from, you've got some great speakers like Theobald, you've got James Buckley on there, you've got Richard Harris, you've got myself on there as well. But I love the other side of this because, interviewing the personas. So I think the one thing that ruffles my feathers is a lot of LinkedIn posts are created by salespeople for other salespeople. And they talk about techniques and tips and stuff like that. But part of me sometimes think is, outside of LinkedIn, there are just more than salespeople. There are the actual prospects, the people that live in that job and do those things. And I'm wondering, is that how a HR person would react to that type of messaging?
Yeah.
Is that how a CISO would react to that sort of video email? Would they click that suspicious link?
Yeah,
so I actually did sit. They don't. And I actually sat there last year, and you've already done it. But I sat there last year and I thought maybe with this show, I should start interviewing personas. So maybe ask the SDRs, and just this is a future. I'm not trying to steal the idea, but for our listeners and watchers, if there's any sort of persona that you would ever love to kind of question and pick their brain, like a
let
ask
me
me
know.
anything. Yeah. But I thought maybe you could do this. But with you've already done that. So again, this is a recommendation to my listeners and watchers. Go check out Mafalda's stuff, because this is like hearing it from the prospect's mouth is so much more powerful versus than just hearing it from a sales trainer or a coach, right? So
and also I show prospecting email in the end of each episode, so you also see how your personas react to an average prospecting email. So if you don't want to sit and listen to 40 minutes, go to the 5 minutes, the last 5 minutes of the show, and see how a head of engineering reacts to your prospecting email.
I love that.
Bring popcorn.
That is so freaking cool. The reason it's so cool because again, with these posts or these social media posts on TikTok, whatever it is, I do ask myself the question, if I was the persona in that role in industry, how would I react to that email? Because everybody can say, okay, so here's a great email. So, you've got a subject line, you've got the pitch, you're leading with the problem, you've got the call to action. As a prospect, they may just open it and say, oh, it's just an email.
Yeah.
We get so hyped because it's a sales email, but our prospects, I don't think, may get as excited as we do.
Oh, no, they don't. No. I used to prospect, as I said earlier, as head of engineering. I would be super proud of my creative and well thought email, and they would just reply and subscribe. I'm like, I'm gonna cry in the bathroom. But basically, that was the pain I had and I'm super happy that you highlight this, Neil, because that was my pain as a salesperson who was prospecting technical roles. It's like, love the advice on LinkedIn. It doesn't work in these personas, or it's not helping. Maybe it works a bit because I hear, I take it, and I make it my own. So it's not that like, I would take like 50% of the advice or 10%. So it's still useful, but not like, it's not a bullet proof thing at all. And that's also why, that's the reason, because I had that pain and was so deep and there was no information, I decided to create this podcast where I interview Bipersonus, because that was a dream coming true for myself as an early SDR. I did a masterclass for SDRs of Germany just on prospecting technical people. That's the whole topic. Wow. And I also, I also like really recommend now with ChatGPT, people, I wish I had ChatGPT when I was an SDR. Why? As you already noticed, I like art. I don't understand technology. I cannot explain what an API is. But your prospects are technical, and you're not. So go on ChatGPT and explain me like I was 10 years old, what's an API? And this is just an example, right? So now that you have ChatGPT, you have a personal assistant to explain to you any complicated jargon and thing that then can make you communicate your prospects better. So these are the 3 things that are really like, I always like mention, because I had that issue. I didn't understand my buyer persona. because I'm not one of them. I never will be. I didn't understand the language. I don't know how to prospect them. And that's why I created these 2 resources. And I really recommend people to use ChatGPT as a personal free assistant to help you communicate better.
I love that. And that's such an actionable tip for our listeners and watchers. So thank you for sharing that. And here's a true story, because I love ChatGPT. I've been in love with it from day one. Sometimes when I'm scrolling LinkedIn and I see a very long post where somebody's talking about this great success, I will skim it and be like, what are they talking about? So I then copy, paste it into ChatGPT and I say, please explain this to me as a 20-year-old in simplified language. And then I'll say, what are they basically saying? What's the key theme or message here? It helps me skim read these really long posts to just get to what they're talking about. And once I see, okay, now maybe I can respond to it because I understand the context. Because sometimes where people will write in a technical sort of way within sales, I'm like, I don't get what they're saying. I'm the idiot in the room here. But we could definitely talk about this for hours and hours and hours, which makes me think, Mafalda, at some point, we definitely would love to get you back onto the show to see things how going. So maybe after we've met in Germany, let's plan that in Germany when we go out to the Artist Berlin Circus as well, 100%. But to kind of wrap things up, because it's been great having you on the show, the question that I love to ask all of my guests, if you could go back to the young Mafalda who's having that chat with her mother about, I want to do this, and mum's like, I don't think so. What 3 bits of advice would you give to her before she embarked on her journey?
So I would say first on your career, because I think a mistake I've made and everyone makes because no one tells you the truth is a lot of young professionals and people who are ambitious, they think if they will do a good job, they'll get promoted or they'll get a raise. Or, and unfortunately, I wish it was like that, but it's not like how life works. And if I would have knew that at the beginning of my career, maybe I would be even further in my career. Because I was always a good student. I always I gave the extra mile. I've done this, I've done that. And then suddenly someone else would be promoted for, to be honest, no reason. Right? And so I really recommend people, you want that promotion, you want that raise, go get it. And by go get it is you need to clearly communicate what you want from day one, or at least that you want something, right? Even if it's not clear. You need to be proactive. Like, let me take the responsibility out of you, right? You see your manager is too busy. Is there anything I can do, right? I wanted to organize when I was in SDR, like talks with personas at the time, but then it didn't happen, right? Like, so do these kind of things because you are the owner of your career. You want to raise, go get an offer from another company and go back to your company and say, I have this offer, can you match it?
Yeah.
It's the only way you can get a raise. One of the few. Unless you're very lucky and your company really values, but, it's like fairy tale kind of thing. Yeah. So that's the first advice that I will give. You are the owner of your career. Also with learning, I didn't get proper training besides Wonderway, and it's not because I'm working for Wonderway now. I had a great onboarding because we also know onboarding tool. But, but besides that, I never had a great onboarding.
Yeah.
And the onboarding didn't set me up for success. But you're also responsible for yourself. Yes, companies should onboard you properly, but when they don't, that shouldn't be the reason for you. Like, all right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You are the owner of your career. So it's also your own responsibility to be successful. And that's the second, it's kind of the first, but it's like, I would say that's the second advice. And the third one is really like learn about different things that are not related to your job. Because I've done it naturally because I have the issue of I get bored easily and everything is interesting to me. But I would say that like everything and that's how creativity works. It's like AI. The more your AI has the information, the more new things the AI can produce. That's how language models work. Your brain works the same way. The more things you know about really random topics, the new things you can create. So be curious about like anything really, art, sports, politics, economy, philosophy, and that's going to be useful in your job. Yeah. Because maybe you have someone who studied music and you can create report because of that. Maybe you can make like a reference, and you can make a metaphor with the book the person actually read and you actually read as well. Like, so, and also like the reason why I'm so comfortable speaking in public is because I've done theater for 5 years. Again, it's not natural, it's trained.
Yeah.
So these are, I would say, the 3 advice I will give, pieces of advice
I'll
give.
So to kind of summarize that, so like obviously own your career, and you're the person that's in charge of how it's going to go, and make sure it's clear what you want from that company. Own your learning, because it's not just down to the company to teach you how to do things. You have to take ownership on that as well.
Yes.
And diversify your learning. Expand your mind outside of just the job and things you do. And again, that can bring you connections and help you enhance within your career. Is that correct, Mafalda?
Perfect, Neil. I'm so glad you summarized that.
Love it. All right. Well, Mafalda, it's been an absolute joy having you on the show. And I want to say a big thank you to our listeners and watchers. And as a gentle reminder, because it does help us out with the show, please make sure that you give us a rating in your local podcast platform and share this episode with your peers, your friends, your family, your pet dog, whoever it may be. And also make sure that on our YouTube channel that you like, comment, and subscribe. And let us know, what did you think about today's episode? Do you have any further questions for Mafalda? And as a reminder, you can also connect with Mafalda. I'll be putting all of her links to her profiles, her shows, her notes, and everything like that. But Mafalda, pleasure having you on board. And I will definitely see you. I'll see you in April, face to face, for a big hug at the circus.
And a rap battle.
Yes, we're going to get down with a rap battle list. And maybe bring your flute, and perhaps we could make we can do something. But again, thank you so much for coming on the SDR Disco Call show. Have an awesome week.
The pleasure was mine.
Happy selling. See you later.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to the SDR Disco Call podcast today. We would like to get this message out to more and more sales development reps, so please like, comment, and share in your local podcast provider. If you don't want to miss a show, you can always send a blank email to SDR Disco Call, one word, at bcast, which is bcast.email, and you'll be added to our mailing list. We're also on the lookout for new guests, so if you work in the world of sales development as an SDR, BDR, MDR, or ADR, and feel that you have an important message or story to share, feel free to email us at podcast@happyselling.io, and we'd love to have you on board.